Call to order the City of Santa Barbara Airport Commission, June 18th, 2014. Roll call, please.
Bruce Miller,
Here.
Kirk Martin,
Here.
Craig Arcuri,
Here.
Patricia Griffith,
Here.
Carl Hopkins,
Here.
Karen Kahn, Jim Wilson.
Here.
All right. Thank you. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, before we get to public comment, I would like to congratulate our new official airport director, Hazel Johns. It's very nice to have you officially.
Thank you very much.
All right. Public comment. Any member of the public may address the Airport Commission on any subject within its jurisdiction. Do we have any speaker slips?
No speaker slips.
Coming to the floor? No. Okay, notices on Tuesday, June 10th at 5:30 p.m. The airport secretary duly posted this agenda on the bulletin board at Airport Administration. And we have the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to waive the reading and approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Consent calendar, do we have any changes to the consent calendar?
No changes.
All right. The consent calendar composed of a lease agreement with the Hayward Lumber Company and the property management report. A motion to approve the consent
I'll
calendar?
move for approval of the
Second.
consent calendar.
All in favor of approving the consent calendar?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Consent calendar approved, thank you. And that brings us to liaison reports. Looks like we have a full house today. Do we have any report from our City of Santa Barbara liaison? Commissioner, or Councilmember Frank Hotchkiss. Good evening.
Bruce, you stole my thunder because I was going
Oh.
to make a big presentation
Oh, well,
about this to
Please
Hazel to
proceed.
congratulate her once again because we already did this
You just
formally at City
can't have it.
Council, but clearly she was a right, perfect choice. So Hazel, may I present you with your name, please? Thank you very much. Congratulations. Talk about a smooth transition. I mean, wow. The only other thing I wanted to tell you is that some more good news, if I can put it that way, that the TOT was up 13.4% year over year last month in May, and the year for the total of the year, it's up 15.3% for the fiscal year. So, I mean, that indicates a really strong tourist-driven economy, and the airport plays its very important part in that. Congratulations and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
And our City of Goleta liaison, Mayor, I think you're still mayor, right? Michael T. Bennett.
Thank you so much, and I'd also like to offer up my congratulations as well to Hazel. She and I go way back. We've known each other for an awfully long time. So you're going to have real fun now. This will be an interesting time. The only comment I'd like to make tonight, it's a question I continue to get asked in regards to on and off ramps on the freeway and all the construction that's going on out there. Caltrans has a policy. They will only shut down one northbound on-ramp in a construction area and only one southbound off-ramp in an area at the same time. So what you see occurring is it. There will be no other on and off ramp shut down other than maybe for a few hours to do something or whatever that case, but it won't be a long-term shutdown. So when the southbound Los Caneros off-ramp is opened, then the southbound, the way it's supposed to work, the southbound Fairview off-ramp is supposed to close. If that makes sense, I think it does. But in any case, that's what's on the horizon in the future. But for now, it's the northbound Fairview off-ramp, on-ramp that's closed going northbound towards Buellton. That's shut down, and it's estimated to be about 6 to 9 months. We're hopeful it'll be closer to 6. And the southbound at Los Caneros is, we're working through that. That's supposed to be a 9 maximum. We're hoping for 6. So and it's been closed now for about 6 weeks. So we're optimistic that we'll get that all taken care of very shortly. So that's all I know about on roadway constructions that may be impacting here to the airport. If there are any questions, happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that brings us to administrative reports. Item 6, a presentation on the maintenance division's roles and responsibilities.
Yes, Commission Chair Miller, Jeff McKee is here with us this evening and continuing our orientation on staff and what we do. I'll have Jeff give his presentation.
Commissioners. I'm Jeff McKee, Airport Maintenance Superintendent. As Hazel said, I'm here just to kind of give you an overview of what the maintenance division does at the airport. And
Is it working?
so as an outline, I'm going to just talk about where we are in the organization. I'll talk a little bit about the facility that we're maintaining, and then talk about the division responsibility, which includes the custodial maintenance, facilities maintenance, and administrative portion of that. Also the challenges and achievements that are in our division recently. So here's an organization chart. We are under Tracy's management. The maintenance division is here. As I said, includes the custodial division and the facilities maintenance division. We're operating in the operations division under Tracy. The airport facility is 952 acres. As you know, we have 3 runways, 14 taxiways, and we maintain about 56 buildings, including the airline terminal. Many of those buildings, excluding the airline terminal, are World War II era, and they're occupied by over 100 tenants. So we have a lot of turnover, and that's a lot of the work that we do, is getting facilities ready for a new tenant. So here's the airport map. As you know, the airport boundary is along Fairview, down to the localizer, around the localizer, Fowler, Moffett, down to Ward Memorial, along the bluff at UCSB, and then the line goes over to Los Carneros, back up to Hollister, over to Love Place, and then cuts back and over like this. So that's back almost to the railroad tracks back there on the north side. So a lot of the commercial industrial properties are north of Hollister here, and those are buildings that we maintain also. So as far as maintenance division responsibilities, we maintain the facility using airport staff and contractors. We're responsible for managing contractors as well as staff. And also, just to point out, staff are trained, all of our maintenance staff are trained to assist in the event of an aircraft incident or natural disaster. So each have their roles and are prepared in the event of a disaster or an incident. As far as custodial maintenance staff, David DuPont is the custodial supervisor. He has 8 full-time employees. We're currently fully staffed. We have 5 hourly part-time employees that we use to fill in when staff's unavailable. Responsibilities at the airline terminal, we do all the public spaces and restrooms. We do also the back office spaces for airlines and rail cars and TSA. We do not only the public space, but we do the sterile areas and the secure areas as far as custodial maintenance. We also outside do litter and trash collect. The luggage carts, get them back for passengers to be able to use. And then we're implementing the Green Seal program, trying to use the environmentally preferable materials, cleaning materials, and also the recycling program, which is really successful over at the terminal. They do a really good job in separating a large amount of recyclable materials out of the waste stream. So they do a really good job at that. Here's a few pictures of staff working with different pieces of equipment that we have.
You do use soap on the floors, right?
That machine that I showed right here is floor scrubber, the green one in the upper left. It doesn't use any chemical at all on the floor. It uses ozone is a part of, as the scrubbing agent, and so it's just water that we use to scrub. No chemicals at all, and it does a really good job. Other custodial maintenance responsibilities, we manage contractual custodial maintenance services, which are in this building. The building's occupied by airport staff, a few tenant spaces, and then we also are responsible for auditing their performance and making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Custodial maintenance also responsible for purchasing all the custodial supplies that are used in all the buildings, including the airline terminal and the equipment. Facilities maintenance side of things, so that was the custodial staff. This is the maintenance side of staff. The maintenance supervisor is Pete Conception. He has 8 full-time employees. We have a painter, 4 senior maintenance workers, 3 maintenance worker 2s, 2 ground maintenance workers, and we're currently recruiting for 1 painter. We had a carpenter that retired, so we decided to fill that position as a painter. We have overwhelming painting workload to do, so that'll be a second painter for us. And also, all of these maintenance staff are trained to communicate with air traffic control so that they can operate it on the airfield and do maintenance out on the airfield, whether it be painting, lights and signs, mowing, spraying. They're all out there and all trained to do that and good at it. Other maintenance responsibilities more specific to the airfield, as I said, lights and sign and visual aids, markings, small-scale pavement maintenance, cracks, potholes, and rubber removal. Fencing, we're responsible to maintain the perimeter fence, and we're also responsible for vegetation mowing and spraying to make sure the lights and signs are visible. Here's a few pictures of staff replacing sign faces recently. Our responsibility in this incident was to, there was some hydraulic fluid spilled and some fuel spilled, so our staff was out there assisting with that and cleaning up the fuel that was spilled. Other responsibilities at the terminal, we do a lot of contract maintenance at the terminal because of as advanced as a lot of the systems are over there. We need contract maintenance on a lot of things, but we do plumbing, electrical infrastructure. We do some work on the boarding bridges. We do the lighting. We do the painting. All the interior and exterior signage, doors, and whatever hardware's over there we work on, and then tenant spaces we do also. But as far as contract maintenance, we have contractors that do this list of items, which includes the air conditioners, escalators, paging system, all those systems that are kind of, our staff are really good at nuts and bolts type thing, but when it starts getting really technical with a lot of computer systems and a lot of monitoring systems in there, we need contractual help to do that. A lot of them are kind of proprietary, and they kind of work on their own stuff, so we get help in those areas. Facilities maintenance responsibilities on other buildings. Basically, we do all the exterior stuff. We do the electrical and plumbing. So this is the other 55 buildings besides the airline terminal. Roofs and paint, all the windows and doors. We also have wash racks, which are stormwater, best management practices to prevent stormwater pollution. We take care of those, as well as lift stations, and then all of our infrastructure for water and sewer and fire hydrants. Also do landscaping and grounds away from the terminal primarily. So a few pictures of staff working in, you see this building, Elephant Bar, we're doing the landscaping there now. Some pictures of staff sweeping and mowing. Again, sweeping is one of our stormwater best management practices. And then we did some renovations to the trash enclosures recently, so staff working on those. These are pictures of the car rental quick turnaround facility, which we're currently doing all the maintenance on. 2 car wash bays, and that was a learning experience for staff also to get kind of up to speed on taking care of that, but they're doing a good job. As far as administrative, Ray Rosas works down at the yard for us. She purchases goods and services. She does a lot of that for us. She pays the bills for things that we buy to do for our maintenance activities, about 4,000 invoices a year. She also tracks the maintenance work effort through work order system. So that's about 4,500 work orders a year. She tracks there. She both cuts the work orders, turns them out, and then records the work that's done in the system. So we track all that. And then she also does leave requests. Pete and I work on managing contracts, a lot of coordination with customers. So if we're going to do maintenance or maintenance on the airfield, we make sure that everybody knows that we're going to be there and try to make it as smooth a process as possible. We're also responsible for compliance with environmental regulations. I mentioned stormwater a couple of times, also wastewater, air pollution, solid waste, and recycling, and hazardous waste. And then Pete and I also do personnel, as well as Dave DuPont. For challenges for the maintenance division, the drought's a challenge for us to make sure that we're, got all of our leaks fixed. We're saving as much water as we can. We're being as conservative as we can. The new terminal, waterless urinals, it's really water efficient. But we need to make sure all of our other facilities are water efficient also. Lead paint is another big challenge for us. A lot of the World War II era buildings have lead paint, so that increases our costs. We're looking at getting staff certified to handle lead paint so that we can go into all these buildings, or exterior particularly, and paint with our own staff. And I also talked about complexity of systems. That goes back to the kind of technological complexity of the systems, and that's a challenge for us because the systems are just so different and so kind of each one is unique. It's hard to get staff trained to be able to take care of those systems and be able to respond, and it's frustrating sometimes because we can't get them fixed as quickly as we want to because we have to call someone else in. Budget constraints and staffing are always a challenge. And completing airfield work without impacting scheduled airline service. If we work on the main runway, the last flight's around midnight, the first one's around 5:30 in the morning. So if we're painting centerline, that doesn't give us much time to be out there actually painting and giving it time to dry. So that's a challenge for us too. And we don't want to impact scheduled airline service. So we try to squeeze it in and just make more nights, which is not as efficient as it could be, but we're not impacting the service. Achievements, recent achievements, some good renovations that staff has completed and done a nice job on lately. Some leased space over on Botello and Becknell Roads on the north side. We did a big renovation in building 312, which is on Cook Place there in the left center, and got a new tenant into that space. We also, on the east end of that building, did a recent renovation that turned out really nice and got a tenant in there. And then the former tire shop on the corner of Hollister and Fairview, we did all that renovation down there and get it ready for a new tenant. So we're hopeful to get someone in there soon. As far as custodial maintenance, recent achievements, airline terminal cleanliness, as Tracy says, we don't get complaints about the cleanliness of the airline terminal. It's really kept nicely, and I think it looks good. And that's a testament to staff's hard work. We transitioned in that building and increased staff. Lots more restroom facilities to clean and a lot more square feet to clean over there, so they're doing a good job keeping the building looking nice. We also competitively bid contracts for consumable products over there at the terminal, all around the airport really, which hadn't been bid for a while, and also competitively bid custodial services for our tenant-occupied buildings and airport staff-occupied buildings. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. Any questions or comments?
Well, thank you. That does a really great job of putting kind of the size and complexity of your responsibilities perspective, and what an outstanding job you all are doing. Questions, comments?
No, I just commend you on doing a great job and making everything look as good as it does.
Thank you.
Just curious, what kind of constraints do you have to work around with all the World War II era buildings? Is it solely lead paint issues, or are there other constraints as well?
No, everything's 70 years old now, so it's your plumbing systems are getting old, your electrical systems, a lot of it was knob and tube originally, so we have to work around that. Just aging buildings all the way around.
And do you find that's slowly increasing the cost of what you have to do to solve problems?
Of course, and there's big projects like roofs come around, so
Right.
a lot of those things are coming up, and those are big dollar items. Question?
Well, thank you very much. And brings us to item 7, the airline terminal solar photovoltaic project.
You might recall when the airline terminal was going through development, design and review, and through City Council and Planning Commission, there was a great deal of interest in sustainability and also in a solar project to provide the electricity for the terminal. And tonight Jeff's going to give you a presentation on where we are on the current project that's underway. Jeff?
So as a little background, as Hazel said, council directed staff originally, as we were designing the new airline terminal, to come up with a way to offset the increased carbon emissions from the new building. Of course, the new building uses much more energy than the old building did, just sheer size. So the concern was that we find a way to try to offset those carbon emissions. So we came up with solar photovoltaic on the on canopies in the long-term parking lot is probably the best way to do that. They would supply renewable energy to the airline terminal. And we decided to use a power purchase agreement approach to do that. And I'll talk a little bit more about the power purchase agreement. Basically, we partner with the provider, and they're responsible for building and operating the system throughout the life of the agreement, which would be 20 years in this case. They do everything from design to maintenance, construction, all the way through. And then we would agree to buy all the power that was produced by the system, and we'd use it at the airline terminal. It's not straight just directly used at the airline terminal, but we would use the kilowatt hours that they produce. What I mean is if there's excess, it goes back into the grid and we can use it later. The advantage of a power purchase agreement is there's no upfront capital costs for the airport. Systems are quite expensive, so that's a good thing for us at this point. A third-party provider that's not a municipality can use tax benefits to reduce the investment, large tax benefits, and also lower the price of the energy that he's delivering to us. So that's kind of the main benefit. So they can usually get the price down where it's competitive with SCE pricing, and basically our energy prices are set, they will be known over the term of the agreement, which will be 20 years. Disadvantage, you're partnered with someone for 20 years, so if that's a good partnership, that's good. If it's not, then that can be a challenge. The asset can also be sold, and you can have a new partner during the term of the agreement, so that can be a challenge that we've heard. We choose a energy tariff that's a expensive daytime, peak time rate because we're expecting to offset those costs and buying solar instead of Edison power. So if the system's unreliable, we'd buy that energy from Edison and it'd be more expensive. So we're dependent on the system to be reliable. And energy prices are set for a 20-year term, and if energy prices don't increase as quickly as we expect them to, then you're still stuck with the pricing that you have agreed to in this agreement. As far as kind of past requests for proposals, in March 2011, we issued the first RFP to try to get this project going. We were unable to reach agreement. We didn't have a lot of certainty in the scope just because we didn't know how much electricity the terminal was going to use. We didn't really know what the time frames were that we were working with as far as construction. So we got high prices because of that uncertainty. I think that made people inflate their prices somewhat. And then as construction phasing, we just couldn't start this project until we got the short-term parking lot up and going before we could impact long-term parking. We wouldn't have had enough parking. So we were unable to reach agreement. We went to council's sustainability subcommittee and suggested that we not proceed with that particular RFP, and we were asked to go back out again and try to get do a second RFP and see if we can find more reasonable rates and a provider. So we did that in February 2014 this year. We improved the scope and we were able to reduce uncertainty a lot in the scope. Community Environmental Council staff was helpful in doing that. They participated throughout the RFP development and in the selection process. We received proposals from 8 firms, and we did get improved pricing. We interviewed the top 3 firms. The pricing is competitive with Edison. It appears to beat Edison at this point. So our next steps Actually, we've already done reference checks and selected a top firm, and we met with them yesterday to try to talk about how we're going to negotiate the power purchase agreement and come to terms so that we can bring that project back to you for recommendation to the city council. So those are kind of our next step. After we get that power purchase agreement in place, they can move forward with their design and construction of the system itself. By maybe mid-2016, they're looking at a schedule yesterday, talking about maybe late 2015. So they might be able to be ahead of schedule if things go well. We'll see how everything works. The first thing we need to get nailed down are the terms of that power purchase agreement so that both parties are happy and moving ahead. So that's where we are right now. We're hopeful maybe we'll be back to you next month with the agreement. They seem to think that it would be a quick process. We'll see what the negotiations bear, but that would be our hope. Any questions? That's all I have as far as where we are on that project.
What would the size of this plant be in output?
It's
Kilowatts.
it would produce close to 1.4 million kilowatt hours a year. So it's around 900 kW, I think. Not exactly, but in that
Yeah.
ballpark.
Well, that depends upon whether the sun's shining or
It
not,
does.
so.
Absolutely.
Which would bring up my question. I presume the folks the PPA firm is aware of the fact that this airport often has fog. I mean, I'm only on north of Cathedral Oaks, and many, many days I look outside and go, oh, it looks like a great day to go flying, and I check the weather. Overcast at 1,000 feet, and that's at, noon.
I know that UCSB has some data that they've used, and there is data that they use for solar resources throughout the area, so they are aware.
Okay.
These canopies, would they be like covered parking for some of the spots, or exactly what's the
It would be
profile?
covered parking, right? They'd be like a cantilever design,
Mhm.
like we have over at the car rental facility, very similar to those actually. Probably covering the center 4 rows and then a couple of other rows, if you can kind of imagine the layout of the long-term parking lot. I didn't bring an overhead shot,
Mhm.
but it would be covered parking. It's not watertight covered parking, but it's shade.
Which would be great.
So it'd be a pretty large system.
In any part of the process, have we consulted other airports or have we consulted other people who have, thinking specifically airports who have done similar things?
We have, Denver did a big project. We talked to Fresno, Yosemite. They've done a pretty good sized project. And then as far as following up with the references with this company, they have done other airports and other municipalities where they've negotiated agreements.
In talking with the other airports, did you get kind of gosh, we wish we'd have known this before we did this, or gee, this worked out? These were kind of the high points that worked out better than we thought, and these are the things that we wish somebody had told us or we
did,
learned.
and I think we tried to include a lot of those in our RFP. This has been a long kind of process, so we learned a lot of stuff kind of early on in 2011, and I think we're able to kind of improve it here. The technology is pretty proven technology, and they're pretty certain at what level they can produce. It's a matter of them, maintaining the system, and they don't get paid until they generate electricity. So that takes a lot of risk from us also, that we're not responsible for maintaining and making sure it's working.
Okay, thank you. Is there any sort of energy storage associated with this, or is this it's used on demand, or it goes back to the grid? Is there any other associated storage?
There's no storage, but it's grid tied. I think it's called net metering. So it
Right.
goes out into the grid, and then we get credit for those hours, and then we use those hours.
So
back.
essentially, the grid is the storage.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
So you mentioned the price predictability. Is it indexed pricing, or is it fixed for the term of the?
It's fixed pricing for the term. That was part of the RFP process to give us your pricing per year over the 20-year agreement per kilowatt hour.
But it changes over time. It's not set a single rate through the duration of the 20 years.
We had 8 proposals, and some proposals did have a flat rate over the 20-year term. We used, present value calculation to do the calculation on, which was the best for us.
Okay. And you mentioned that the facility could be sold to someone else. Is it a possibility that the facility could be sold back to the city? Or is that something that would be excluded from?
I think that is in the draft agreement, that there is an option. Like the first 7 years, there are tax consequences so that it can't be sold back within the first, I believe it's 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that horizon, that would be a potential. And at the end of the 20-year agreement, either they are required to remove the whole thing from the airport or to sell it back to us, or to sell it to us. That would be a negotiation at that time.
So then, would they be leasing space for the facility as well? Is it kind of a combined lease and service arrangement?
There's no charge for the lease, but essentially they're leasing the space for 20 years.
Okay, so then it would follow any sort of leasing types of
Right, and that's basically
procedures we have to
big
go
part
through.
of the power purchase agreement. There's the kind of lease side of it, and then there's the power purchase side of it.
Okay.
And then I think you mentioned in this, but for just the periodic maintenance, as dust collects on solar cells that become less efficient.
Right.
That becomes your maintenance staff's responsibility, or that's completely?
That's completely their responsibility. They're responsible for keeping that thing working as well as they want it to work. So, the more power they generate, the more they sell to us. So
Thank
if
you.
they're not generating it, we're not buying it.
Well, you mentioned that it puts us in a certain amount of risk because if they don't produce, then we're buying Edison power at a higher tier rate. Are there service level agreements with any sort of penalties in place for their performance, or are we just kind of subject to whatever we get?
There are performance guarantee terms in the agreement, which are yet to be finalized.
Okay.
They are in there.
With any sort of whatever performance penalties for?
Right.
Okay.
You mentioned that it could be sold. Does the airport or the city have any ability to review who it's sold to, and is approval required, or is it they can sell it to anybody they want anytime?
No, it's a process that's included in the agreement. And as I say, the agreement is still draft at this point, but the agreement that we're using, we put in a draft agreement in the request for proposals that we've used on the facility downtown. So it's an agreement that the city has used in the past. So yes, there are.
And then I've looked at PPAs for my home on several occasions, and the numbers always look good until I took a look at their estimate of Southern California Edison's rate increases. Oh, they increase 5, 6, 7, 8% per year, and it's going to get worse. Unfortunately for them, I happen to have tracked my own personal expenses on a kilowatt hour basis, and it basically is 3% per year. So I'm sure you've looked into that, but I would just, all of them that I've seen, as soon as you actually applied their increase against the Southern Cal Edison, the numbers turn negative very fast.
In this case, Jim Dewey, who's the facilities energy manager for the city, has put together a model to model, not only the costs associated with the PPA, but modeling Edison rates, and he used a 3% escalator for the Edison rates over the 20-year agreement, and used a 5% discount rate.
Okay.
For the present
Good.
value.
Great. It's nice to hear that it confirms my numbers also.
Is the city looking at other installations of this magnitude?
I'm not sure about the city, but the airport, this is kind of we looked at a lot of different sites, and this is by far the largest site that really was a feasible site for us. It's got good east-west orientation, so good exposure, and not a lot of environmental issues that really constraints that increase costs.
So this puts us in the position of being the civic leaders.
It would be one of the larger systems in the city, yes. Public Works does have, the agreement is from the system that's on top of the Public Works corporate yard, which is on top of many of the roofs down there on Laguna Street. So there is a facility there that's functioning, and it's a pretty large facility also.
Any other questions? Well, we're certainly looking forward to seeing that moving forward.
As are we. Thank you, Jeff.
And I think that is all of our items there, and bringing us
Can-
direct, oh, go ahead.
I just thought of something as you mentioned the orientation, and that dawned on me. Glare for planes coming in to 2-5 on a left base, or the rare occasion when they use 3-3.
We put that in the RFP that there's actually a new advisory circular coming out on solar PV at airports from FAA, and this company that we are negotiating with was the first one to go through that process successfully. So they have experience at airports and doing a glare analysis 7460 and making sure that's all approved through FAA.
Thank you.
Right. No problem. Good to know. The director's report.
Yes, Mr. Chair. A couple of things. You have our enplanements, our passenger count for the month of May compared to the prior month. And with the reduction in service from American, we are down about 8%. Year to date, it's a negative 1.1%. But we're really pleased to the increase in capacity from United Airlines. We're really pleased about that, and we're really close to covering the number of seats that we lost with the increase with the jet service to Los Angeles from Santa Barbara. Also, 2 or 3 of the flights to San Francisco are now in regional jets, and also Denver service this summer will have a larger jet, an RJ 700. With 70 seats going to Denver. So that's going to assist us, hopefully, to have the seats. We've got a marketing program getting ready to start advertising those increased seats and United service. So we're hoping to fill those seats and generate more passengers. Also, I'd like to mention the cup of coffee coupons that we did that with our passengers. We're working with our concessionaire, First Class Concessions, the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, and provided coupons to passengers that were exiting the parking lot saying, next time you come, have a cup of coffee on us. And over the last week during UCSB's graduation services and the other services here in town, I believe we gave out 1,300 coupons. So it'll be interesting to see how many of those come back. If you just put it in your pocket and keep it, it's worth a regular coffee. We're not doing fancy coffee, just the regular coffee. So, and of course, we'll pay the actual cost of the coffee back to Coffee Bean and Tea, not the retail price. Also, our web, flysba.com, in concert with the city's update of the website. Ours is going live, and we just did the switch over a week or so ago. So we still have a few bugs to work out, but by and large, it's coming along nicely. Lynn Houston is beating us to death to update our pages and make sure all of the information is current. One other item I'd like to call your attention to is the master plan. We're starting the environmental process, and we'll have the scoping hearing on July 24th. So you will be invited to attend that particular meeting if you so choose, and so we'll get that underway as well. So that concludes my report, unless you have other comments.
Revenue and expenses tracking close to budget.
Actually, I should have brought you that tonight, and I apologize. For the month of May, through the 11 months of the year, we're in the black. And if all goes well, we should, if Tracy doesn't spend all the money, we should have a little bit of money to fall to the bottom for our capital program. So I'm really pleased. Staff has been very conservative on expenditures, and really doing competitive bids to get the very best price for all of our products and services. So I'm really pleased. Keep your fingers crossed. Plus, with United adding the jet service, that increases the time or the turns for the boarding bridges. So that's a new revenue source for us as well, or an increase in revenue service. So, yeah, we're doing good.
Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Plus, aren't we saving the salary on the assistant airport director?
Well, yes, we do have quite a few salary savings accumulated because we do have vacancies. Patrol, once again, has a patrol officer. Tracy has several vacancies in operations. And of course, the assistant director's position now that I've been appointed director, so we just flip-flop that. Yes. Any other questions?
Are we actively, how will that be recruited for, the assistant airport director?
I'll be meeting with Paul Casey and Jim Armstrong and discussing the duties for that position and looking at the department as a whole, see what our needs are, and then it will be a recruitment. It'll be a national recruitment. We need someone strong with all kinds of skills. Yes.
Anything else? Well, I guess with that, we are adjourned, and again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.